Good afternoon, good evening, good day, everyone. Welcome to the latest episode of Homily Chat. I'm Father Darryl Millette here in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan. With me, as usual, Father Michael Liliedahl, just south of San Francisco. Hello, Father Michael. How are you?
I am doing well. It is sunny. It is fairly warm. But one thing we got going on, and actually I think it'll lead to our first topic, is we have some winds picking up here. And
Mm-hmm.
it is getting pretty windy. And I know you got some weather coming your way that you are preparing for as well. But the winds are actually causing a problem with homilies, which I
Mm.
never really thought might be the problem or an issue. But with COVID, because we're all inside the church right now, one of the things that we've been instructed to do by the county um, to keep the airflow going is to keep the doors open. And so when you we have a door at the back of the church, one at the right and one at the left. And when you keep those doors open, it gets a nice little draft going right through there. And the mornings can still be a little bit chilly. And I think next week the heater starts turning on automatically in the church at about 3 or 4 in the morning. And so we were talking actually, my pastor and I, about, well, what does this do with homilies for daily masses, and what does this do for homilies at Sunday masses if it's going to be windy and cold and people are kind of bundled up in jackets to go to mass? Have you ever dealt with any weather issues in your homilies before?
Power outage caused by a thunderstorm. I've dealt with that before. Um, Otherwise, not so much. I mean, we're indoors, and I mean, probably the worst thing that I had happen wasn't really to do with weather as much as it was to do with nature in the form of a family of skunks that
Ooh,
decided
okay.
to live under, like, in the crawl space of an old rural church that I was assigned to. And so for the whole winter, we couldn't get in there to trap these things. So every time I'd show up for mass, you'd know, you'd know that the skunks were living there. It was beautiful.
Now,
Yeah, it's
do
probably the
skunks,
worst.
was it their spray or was it their droppings? Or, I mean, I'm trying to
Just
think, because unless they're frightened, they don't really spray, right? But they can't be the most clean smelling animals in the world normally. So,
no, just the smell, just the smell. And they had to wait till spring before they could go and trap the things. So it's, but speaking of snow, that's what's coming up here. So I just took a picture outside because if what happens overnight and tomorrow is what they say it is, I will not see grass in person until April.
that'll be a long ways. That'll be a long ways. You'll
A
be getting
little
some
bit.
longer days come April. So, but yeah, I mean, it's getting to be that time of the year, I guess. And I mean, that time of the year is interesting as well, because I noticed a definite change this morning when I woke up in the temperature with the wind and the cold. You're noticing a change in the snow. Did you notice a change in this Sunday's readings?
Ah, nice segue. I'll let you
Yeah,
carry the
thank you.
segue. That's a pretty good one. What is happening, Father Michael? Do tell us.
Well, I even noticed it as I started reading it. Is I was reading these going, these sound like a lot of readings I've done for funerals before. And the first, and so they reminded me so much of funeral readings, so much that I looked it up. And the first one from Wisdom is not actually a funeral reading, but it comes immediately after one of the most popular funeral readings, and actually one of the readings we had for All Souls Day. And then the Psalm is a funeral reading. The second reading can be a funeral reading, and the Gospel can be a funeral reading. And so I think my premonition, I don't know if I want to call it a premonition. I think my thinking was correct, because do we only have 3 Sundays left in the liturgical year?
Yeah, yeah. 33rd and then Christ the King. Well, so this coming
Yeah.
one and then 33rd and then Christ the King.
Yeah. So
Yep.
so we're getting right to the end of the liturgical year. And this is, and I was even thinking about this. I was like, well, it's nice to live in North America, because we get this kind of natural turning of the seasons that align with the end of the liturgical year. Um, but we don't really get that with, if you live in South America or in the Southern Hemisphere, where it's becoming spring and summer, and life is kind of flowing again. We get the weather that kind of aligns with the readings that you just kind of want to put it bluntly. Death is coming.
Yeah.
Death is coming.
Yep.
So,
Yeah. So on that happy note,
Yeah, let's go ahead and turn to the readings, and I think you are reading the gospel for me this time first.
All right. I will read the New Revised Canadian Standard Version that's been updated and revised. All right. So this is from Matthew 25. Not quite the other set of gospel from Matthew 25. There's another famous one. Might even be next week. I don't know. I haven't looked ahead, but
I haven't looked ahead either.
We'll talk. Anyway, so this is Matthew 25, the first 13 verses. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Matthew.
Glory to you, O Lord.
Jesus spoke this parable to the disciples. The kingdom of heaven will be like this. 10 bridesmaids took their lamps and went to meet the bridegroom. 5 of them were foolish and 5 were wise. When the foolish took their lamps, they took no oil with them, but the wise took flasks of oil with their lamps. As the bridegroom was delayed, all of them became drowsy and slept. But at midnight there was a shout, "Look, here is the bridegroom. Come out to meet him." Then all those bridesmaids got up and trimmed their lamps. The foolish said to the wise, "Give us some of your oil, for our lamps are going out." But the wise replied, "No, there will not be enough for you and for us. You had better go to the dealers and buy some for yourselves." And while they went to buy it, the bridegroom came, and those who were ready went with him into the wedding banquet, and the door was shut. Later the other bridesmaids came also, saying, "Lord, Lord, open to us." But he replied, "Truly I tell you, I do not know you. Keep awake, therefore, for you know neither the day nor the hour." The gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ. So I have a question for you first with the Canadian version. Is it always the bridesmaids? Because in the American version it says virgins, which is an interesting distinction, I think.
Yeah, it's bridesmaids.
It's bridesmaids all the way through, and in the American version, it's always virgins. And in some of the commentary I was reading about, they were talking about the issue, or not the issue, but the representation of purity with virginity, and also the issue that may kind of be a little bit dimmed if you were to go with bridesmaids. But I'm not going in that direction, so I won't dive into that. But I also found it interesting, like we were saying, we're kind of joking at the beginning that neither of us really looked forward to what was next week's gospel. And I admit that sometimes that is a weakness of mine, because I will look back and see, well, where are we coming from? And possibly, what parts of the gospel have we kind of skipped over getting to this week? But I'm not very good at looking ahead at what the gospel readings are to put them in more context. But this pericope here comes immediately after another time when Jesus is telling, "You do not know the day or the hour." And so it seems to be a theme. And I think we get these themes oftentimes when Jesus will tell 2 parables to illustrate the same point. I want to say, well, that's a pretty important point, right? He wants you to get this. He's giving you 2 parables about not knowing the day or the hour. And so I'm going to focus on kind of not knowing the day or the hour of this. And so what does it mean to be ready? Well, if you look at the difference between the bridesmaids, they both have lamps. They're both bridesmaids, or in the American version, they're both virgins. They're together. They're both waiting. They both fell asleep. They both woke up when the cry came. The only difference is the oil, that the wise ones had their store of oil and the foolish ones didn't have their oil. And so when I was reading some of the commentary, a lot of the church fathers equated the oil with kind of the good works and charity and care for the poor, which again leads me to think that very possibly we are getting that other famous Matthew 25 coming up next week with how we're not. Oh, you looked it up. Oh man,
it's actually it's continuing with verse 14 and onward. Parable of the talents.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I mean, it is
there
continuing.
We go.
Right
there goes my
this
theory
one.
on that one. So that theory goes out the window, but it doesn't change the main point that I'm making is that if the oil represents these good works that we have, and I think it was in reading my commentary, is Pope Gregory made a great point in that the foolish ones were told, well, go buy some for yourself. go buy these good works. And they said, well, where do you going to buy these? The people that you're going to give money to, you give them money, you give them, in a sense, kind of means to survival, and they will give you what you need to take in to the bridegroom. And so if you are giving people their means for their survival, kind of that, giving them food, giving them shelter, giving them money if they need money, giving them the things they need to survive, what they in turn give you is the oil you need for your lamp in order to enter into the wedding banquet. And I'll probably have to do a little bit of explanation. I usually do that the bridegroom is almost always the image of Christ. That the bridegroom is one of the most popular images. You have the good shepherd is a very popular image, but I think the most used analogy for heaven or the unity of God and man is going to be a wedding feast in Scripture, and that the bridegroom is always Christ. So almost all of my homilies, when you have a bridegroom or a bridesmaid or a wedding, revolve around some kind of explanation of Christ as the bridegroom. And then here it's kind of like, well, what is the entrance ticket? What is this entrance ticket? It's not just a profession of faith, which it goes along with that idea that the white gown at baptism represents our purity, which is also represented by the bridesmaids or the virgins. And so they all have this kind of profession of faith in Jesus. And they all have these lamps that they carry with them. But the only difference, again, is this oil, which seems to be the works of charity, is what the fathers are the way I'm reading the fathers. And so I'm going to kind of hammer on that point. Like, do you have enough oil? Because we don't know the day or the hour. And I'm thinking that I might do something. I remember one of the things I had done in seminary in one of my homilies, coming with you do not know the day or the hour, is I found a story of someone who had died suddenly, and then kind of compared and contrasted it to a story of a man who lived a long life and was able to die in peace with his family around him, and saying when they were 20 or when these guys were 40, neither of them knew how they were going to die. And one of them died all of a sudden. Just he woke up that morning and said, I'm feeling fine. This is all great. He had no idea that was the end. Where this other man, had time to kind of put his things and his affairs in order. We don't know which one we are. And so we have to kind of be ready for it at all times. We always need to have, in essence, always need to have that entrance ticket with us. We always need to have not only the faith in Jesus Christ, but the good charity, the charitable works along with us.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's one of those things where like, no one wants to think about it, but, sometimes I wonder if, the image of being prepared that comes to our mind is Scar from Lion King singing "Be Prepared," right? And it's like this foreboding kind of "be prepared," But on the flip side, like my brother got married, in September, and seeing them prepare, what were they getting prepared for? Something pretty awesome, right? And this is what we're preparing for. We're preparing for an eternity that blows away our minds, right? Blows away our expectations. This is something that you want to get prepared for. This life is a school of love in many ways, to get prepared. The other thing that was coming to my mind too is the way Jesus dismissed the other bridesmaids. Truly, I tell you, I do not know you. So knowing the Lord seems to be an essential component in this. It's one thing, sure, to maybe to go through the motions and whatnot, but to actually seek a real relationship with Jesus Christ in this life. Because if we're hoping to spend all of eternity with him, start it now, right?
Yeah. And I can kind of contrast that with the verse, where Jesus says, "I know my sheep. They know my voice and they follow me." So this image of, Christ knows his people.
Yeah.
And here he's saying, "But you, I don't even know you."
Yeah.
And in that, and I'm reminded again of it's kind of coming to mind. If you deny me before my Father, I will deny you before my heavenly Father.
Exactly. It all ties together again with like the opening prayer, even the entrance antiphon, let my prayer come into your presence, from Psalm 87. But the opening prayer, Almighty and merciful God, graciously keep from us all adversity, so that, unhindered in mind and body alike, we may pursue in freedom of heart the things that are yours.
There we go.
Being prepared, pursuing Him, right, and everything that is His. Even the book of wisdom in the first reading is this tremendous poetic ode to the wisdom of God and seeking the wisdom of God. And what is the true wisdom of God if not seeking the Logos, seeking Jesus Himself. So I mean, that's kind of the direction where my brain's going with this too, is those two things. First of all, it's not being prepared as in the Lion King.
Yeah.
Like Scar. It's preparation. He's deliberately using a wedding banquet as the image for what we're preparing for. Something great and glorious, and in this case, beyond our imagining, but also how important it is to get to know Him. It's not good enough to just know about Him. There's a difference between religious studies and theology, right? One is knowing about the religion, about God, about these things. The other one is a faith, a real relationship, a real faith seeking understanding. I have no idea if that part's going to get into the homily. It just came to my mind, but
no, I like that, because I was trying to think about it. I love the way you contrasted what we're being prepared for, and use that image of a wedding and a marriage. That we prepare for that, and it's a great, incredible thing to be prepared for, because I was thinking, even with my own homily, talking about death is that it's not a real kind of natural thing to bring up. And that's why I almost said you almost have to bring in the changing of the seasons and the way, the leaves are dying and the earth is kind of entering into death in ways. Because when these readings are used at funerals, that door is already blown wide open. People expect you to talk about death, right? I mean, death is at a funeral is just staring you in the face in a way that it isn't. In essence, the people are not prepared for a death homily when they come to Mass on this Sunday, the way they are prepared for a death homily when they come to a funeral. And so I love that image of preparing for a wedding banquet. And I actually looked up the lyrics to Be Prepared from Lion King here while you were talking, because I was like, oh, I wonder if it actually, I think, because I was trying to remember, I think it says something about be prepared for death in that, be prepared for that. But I didn't find that in my quick looking at it. No. But I have, but you'll be rewarded when at last I'm given my dues, and injustice deliciously squared, be prepared. And, there's something to that line as well. And obviously deliciously plays off the fact that they're lions and they're going to eat their way to justice. But the idea of what are we being prepared for? We're being prepared for this banquet where injustices will be squared, where, as you read that all these famous lines of Jesus, right, that the powerful will be toppled from their thrones, the rich will be sent away empty, the poor will be filled. You have that in that being promised here by Scar in The Lion King, but obviously fulfilled in a very, very different way.
Quite. My words are a matter of pride. It's clear from your vacant expressions the lights are not all. I don't want to sing it, A, because I can't, and B, because I don't want a copyright strike on YouTube. My word, it's clear from your vacant expressions the lights are not all on upstairs. The lyrics are pretty brilliant. I mean, but yeah, it's one of those things. It could be seen as almost a positive thing, but the music and the context, it's just twisted a bit, right?
Yeah. And I think that's
often what. Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, often the things of this world are good to a point, but in the way that they don't orient us to God, it kind of twists a bit, right? Yeah.
And that's what evil is, right? Is a twisting in essence. And I remember someone once said that, Satan can't create on his own. He's not a creator. There's only one creator. All Satan can do is twist that which has already been created, twist something good into something evil. And I think we see that here in this in the song Be Prepared, which interesting enough, and this may actually be my lead in. I remember a social media post, not about the election, although there are a few number of those going out right now, but
Nothing.
I don't know what people are talking about. But somebody was talking about, well, what are the best Disney songs? And someone said, "Be Prepared," and they said, well, that's obviously the best villain song. And but if it's a villain song, they said, oh, do we want to consider it in the best Disney songs? It's up there. And I want to say, "Be Prepared" is up there with what is Gaston's song in Beauty and the Beast?
No,
but that's another one.
Dun, 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 dun. Yeah,
that one. But we don't want to get a copyright strike. So
yeah, exactly. Disney episode. Oh, Disney's cool with copyright.
They've never had an issue with going after the little guy in copyright issues. But no, I think this is an excellent point of not only are we to be prepared, but what are we preparing for? Yeah. Because we always need to kind of keep that end goal in mind, because that's going to tie into also hope, right? What do we keep in? And hope is keeping our eyes fixed on what matters, keeping our eyes fixed on heaven, keeping our eyes fixed on that wedding banquet. In essence, knowing and remembering what we are preparing for, because otherwise we can just get lost in all the preparations.
Which is, I think, exactly St. Paul's point in the second reading, right? We do not want you to be uninformed, brothers and sisters, about those who have died, so that you may not grieve as others do who have no hope. Yeah. And by the way, Jane mentions Ursula's song is pretty stellar.
I was just about to reply to that, but I think Little Mermaid was the first movie I ever saw in the theater. And I was so young that when Ursula got really, really big, it scared the bejesus out of me. And I've always had this kind of mental block from rewatching Little Mermaid. So I haven't seen it since I was probably 5 or 6 years old, when I got scared out of my wits at watching that movie. And so I don't really know any of the songs of Little Mermaid, because they're not traumatic, but I've just said like, oh, I'd rather not revisit that memory.
So the Littlest Mermaid, this is like getting way in the weeds now, but that's okay. The Littlest Mermaid, Little Mermaid. The original Hans Christian Andersen story, it ends really dark. Like
I think a lot of Hans Christian Andersen ends really dark. So
that's the version I was familiar with from like school.
Okay.
Before seeing this movie, and I'm like, oh wait, that's a lot better than the other one. Jane. Oh, but I admit in the past I've been a little nasty. Is that the Ursula song, Jane? Maybe.
No, I think that's Be Prepared.
Oh, it's Be Prepared. Okay, all right. I guess I've already got it off here. Anyway, welcome to Homily Chat and Disney Talk.
There we go. Yeah, who knows? The crossovers, they're coming from all over the place. So I think we have our title for this week. It's simply Be Prepared. It would be a good
Disney
one.
Don't strike us.
Yes. Well, they can't copyright that, right? I mean, do you think?
I'm just being prepared. That's all. Anyway.
Yeah, but no, I think you've convinced me, because I was a little bit nervous about just kind of introducing a homily on death, but I like this idea of, because I think these 2 points are close enough together that they don't constitute 2 homilies too. We need to be prepared, but how do we be prepared, and what are we preparing for, all tie into that one point of preparation.
Yeah. And I mean, too, if you're connecting your homily with what's about to happen in the Mass after this, I think it flows into that too, because the reason we have hope is because of the death and resurrection of Jesus, which is about to be represented right before us at the altar. So we're not alone in any of this. Jesus is calling us to a place where he's gone and where he is, right? So there's a real hope there, which, is getting really, I think, what St. Paul is talking about. And I mean, he uses this pretty wild imagery, right? About the end. For the Lord himself, with a cry of command, with the archangel's call, and with the sound of God's trumpet. Imagine that, right? Will descend from heaven, and the dead in Christ will rise first, and then we who are alive, who are left, will be caught up in the clouds together with them to meet the Lord in the air. I mean, it's wild imagery. And so we will be with the Lord forever. Therefore, encourage one another with these words. And by the way, that nasty comment was Ursula, according to Jane.
Yeah, I just saw that. Yep.
Anyway. For those of you listening on the audio version, feel free to head over to Facebook and comment there too, because it's we love seeing the comments while we're recording the episode and afterwards as well.
That's right. And let us know anything else we may have wrong. As I put in the chat, right? This is not the first wrong statement of the day for me. So if I've made any other wrong statements, please let me know.
It's all good. It's all good. But yeah, so kind of it could be a downer of a weekend, but I think Jesus gives us hope and brings it up.
Yeah.
Which is good.
And kind of going back to the liturgical year as well, right? Because we're getting ready for Advent, which is this season of hope. Mm-hmm. And I think using that kind of turn towards hope, right? This kind of slow, gradual turn towards the season of hope of Advent is a good kind of gradual turn to make.
Yeah, absolutely. I had something else in my mind, but I don't remember. So that's great. What did you say about making mistakes? Anyway, wrong statements. Because you can't make a wrong statement if you make no statement whatsoever. So is that.
I'd have to think about that one for a little bit, but yeah, on the surface, it sounds about right.
Don't think too hard about it.
Yep.
Very good. I mean, so I think this weekend is almost kind of straightforward because it's like everything's about, everything's about death. And what the sister Alethea, Teresa Alethea on Twitter, Memento Mori.
Yeah.
She's been very much popularizing that. So, yeah. I hear a dog snoring just over there, by the way. I don't know if you hear it.
I don't hear it. Good. But it's appropriate for this gospel. So where the bridesmaids fell asleep. So
excellent. All right.
Well, please, if you didn't have a chance to watch this live or however you're listening, go and make a comment on it. Let us know what your priest preached on. Let us know what you would have preached on if you had the opportunity, if you're not someone who preaches on it. And let us know your thoughts over at homilychat.com or on Twitter, on Facebook, on Instagram, wherever you can find us. Make a comment. Let us know.
We would love to hear from you. It's great to be able to chat about this, to prep our homily before the weekend. And actually, as soon as we're done here, I got to work on a funeral homily.
Oh, okay. Well, maybe you can make two birds with one stone.
Maybe. They pick different movies.
Oh, okay.
So
there you go.
Yeah.
All right. Until next week, have a great one. If you're in Saskatchewan, stay inside, stay out of the snow.
Keep your stick on the ice.
Inside, keep your stick on the ice. And if you're in California, stay out of the wind. Keep your candle covered.
Live long and prosper. Well, that seems very appropriate today.